A life of silence and struggle. In the heart of a city that never paused, her life moved in silence. Each morning began before the sun dared to rise, with hands roughened by detergent and skin kissed by cold floors. She walked unnoticed through marble halls, her presence barely acknowledged, as if she were part of the wallpaper, functional, invisible. Her name was seldom used. She was simply the Maid, a title that did little justice to the person behind it. She came from the narrow alleys of a forgotten neighborhood, a place where dreams died quietly and quickly. Her world had been carved out of hardship. A leaking roof, rusted utensils, and the constant worry of unpaid bills painted the backdrop of her every day. Yet, through it all, she carried herself with a rare grace. Her posture, even when bent over a mop, held a quiet pride. Her silence was not born of submission but of strength, the kind of strength that learns to endure without applause. Her wages were meager, but she managed to stretch every coin. She never complained. Complaints, she believed, were a luxury for those who had choices. For her, survival meant swallowing pride and moving forward. Her meals were simple, often just a piece of roti and some tea, but she never let her child go hungry. That was her promise, the silent vow she repeated every night as she tucked a blanket around her sleeping son. People rarely saw the life behind the uniform. They didn't know about the book tucked inside her cleaning bucket, the one she read during stolen 5-minute breaks. They didn't know how she saved 10 rupees a week to buy second-hand school books for her child. They didn't know that she had once wanted to be a teacher, but had to abandon that dream to feed a family left fatherless. Though life had denied her comfort, it had not taken her dignity. She spoke little, but her eyes revealed stories of sacrifice, disappointment, resilience. Even when insulted or ordered around, she responded with quiet composure. There was something unshakable about her. A stillness that came not from defeat, but from knowing how much she had already survived. She didn't ask for kindness, but remembered every gesture of it. She didn't beg for mercy, but carried a heart full of it. And while the world saw her as someone beneath notice, she knew her worth, though she carried that knowledge silently, like a secret too precious to share. She lived in the margins of a glittering city, but her spirit outshone the chandeliers she dusted. Poverty had taken many things from her, but never her will, her hope, or the quiet power of her presence. She was a storm wrapped in silence, a woman who had nothing yet still gave everything.
The first encounter. It began with coincidence, a routine overlap in a world where their paths were never meant to cross. She was assigned to clean the executive floor for a week, a place she usually avoided, too distant from her world of storage rooms and basement corridors. He, the billionaire with a name known in headlines and stock markets, had returned from an unplanned overseas trip a day early. No one expected him, least of all her. Their meeting wasn't grand nor orchestrated. It was awkward. He noticed her as a disruption in his perfectly curated space. She noticed him as a towering presence, unfamiliar and out of reach. He questioned her identity with sharp suspicion, assuming a mistake had been made. His tone was clipped, his words chosen for authority, not understanding. She responded with quiet apology, standing straight, her voice low but firm. She belonged there, for that week at least, and she had work to finish. He was used to a world of luxury and control, where everything responded to his voice or vanished at his command. She was used to cleaning up after people like him, never being seen, never being heard. In his world, people like her didn't exist beyond services rendered. In hers, people like him were unreachable shadows, watching from glass towers. That day, they stood in the same room, but the space between them was wide and woven with centuries of difference. He noticed her hands first, coarse, cracked, shaped by labor.
not the kind of hands that held champagne glasses at galas. She noticed his eyes, not cruel, just distant, like someone who had forgotten what it meant to struggle. He saw her clothes, too plain. She saw his suit, tailored and untouched by dust. The contrast was not just economic, it was lived, generational. She had fought for every crumb of survival. He had inherited entire floors of comfort. But something lingered, a pause, a flicker of curiosity on his part, a guarded strength on hers. He wasn't used to being looked at without awe or flattery. She wasn't used to being looked at all. There was no flinching in her, no shrinking, only a calm, unspoken defiance that surprised him. It unsettled the carefully drawn lines in his mind, lines that separated them from us. He let her stay, but not without reservation. She did her job, wordless and efficient, leaving behind polished surfaces and quiet questions. For the first time, he noticed the silence left in her wake, not empty, but full of something unnamed. For the first time, she became more than background noise. The class divide remained a wall between them, thick and old. But in that brief encounter, a crack appeared, small, fragile, but undeniable. A misunderstanding had led to it, a tension.
A glimpse of humanity. It started with a forgotten file, not its absence, but its return. Left behind in a quiet corner of the conference room, the document held sensitive data. By the time it was noticed missing, it had already been returned, carefully placed, uncreased, untouched. She had found it during her shift, read the warning labels, and without hesitation, ensured it reached the right hands through the proper chain of staff. No fuss, no claim of credit, just responsibility in silence. That was the first time he truly paid attention. He began to observe, not out of suspicion but curiosity. She moved with purpose, never idle, never careless. Every action was precise, born from years of doing more with less. He noticed how she folded napkins into perfect squares even though no one would see them, how she wiped fingerprints off door handles that no one else thought to clean. Her work was invisible by design, but its excellence was undeniable. Over time, small moments added up. He once saw her give her lunch to the young security guard who had forgotten his. No words, just a smile and a gentle nudge of the tiffin box across the table. Another time, she stayed 2 hours after her shift to clean up after a late client meeting, even though it wasn't her job and no one asked. She left before anyone could thank her. It was her kindness, quiet and consistent, that unsettled him most, not performative, not for recognition, just a way of being. Her resilience was wrapped in humility, her strength softened by grace. He had known driven people, ambitious people, ruthless people, but he hadn't seen this kind of dignity in hardship, this kind of calm beneath pressure. He started greeting her, first with a nod, then a polite good morning. She responded with the same respectful neutrality she offered everyone else. No excitement, no pretension, just eye contact that held no fear. That unnerved him more than flattery ever could. She never asked for anything, not attention, not favors, not sympathy, and yet, through her actions, she demanded respect. He found himself wondering about her story. Where had life taken her? What had she given up to be here? Who did she return home to after these long hours? Each question made her more human, more real, more than just part of the background. He began to realize that kindness wasn't weakness, and humility wasn't submission. In her, he saw a kind of power that couldn't be bought or taught, a moral compass that pointed straight even in the storm. She hadn't changed, but something in him had begun to shift. The suit, the office, the billions, they no longer seemed like the only markers of success. For the first time in a long while, he was learning something not from a mentor or a business deal,
but from a woman who asked for nothing and gave more than anyone noticed.
The world starts watching. What began as a subtle shift in perception did not stay unnoticed for long. In a world obsessed with status and spectacle, even the smallest deviation from expectation sparked curiosity. It started with whispers in boardrooms and elevator glances. A billionaire exchanging polite conversation with a maid was enough to disrupt the unwritten social order. His staff noticed it first, how he asked if she had eaten, how he paused when she spoke, how he remembered her name. It was strange, out of place, and therefore instantly suspect. The rumors began to spread, first as harmless office gossip, then as speculative murmurs in higher circles. Some believed it was charity, a powerful man indulging in a moment of compassion. Others hinted at scandal, their words laced with mockery and disdain. They questioned her motives, assumed ambition hidden beneath humility. No one considered that their bond might be rooted in mutual respect, not manipulation or fantasy. His associates began pulling him aside with careful concern. "Be cautious," they warned, cloaked in faux sincerity. "People might misinterpret." Investors quietly raised eyebrows. Friends mocked him at dinners. "You're slipping," they joked, "romanticizing poverty now." Every gesture he made toward kindness was recast as recklessness. The media caught wind, painting him as eccentric, unstable, perhaps even searching for redemption through the illusion of humility. For her, the scrutiny was harsher. She was suddenly more than a maid, now a subject of suspicion. Her colleagues grew distant, unsure whether to envy her or fear her fall. Some accused her of pretending to be something she wasn't. Others insisted she was playing a long game, using silence as strategy. Eyes followed her everywhere now, watching for signs of arrogance, waiting for her to slip. Her world, once quiet and invisible, had become loud and hostile. Society, bound by its own hierarchies, could not stomach the blurring of lines. A bond between a billionaire and a maid did not fit its narrative. There had to be an angle, a scandal, an explanation rooted in drama, not something as inconveniently pure as respect. Pressure mounted from all sides. Every interaction became a risk. A kind word, a shared moment, a glance held too long. Each carried weight now, distorted through the lens of judgment. The world, unable to understand, chose to criticize. And still, neither of them offered an explanation. They gave no interviews, issued no clarifications, and played no games. Silence became their shield. Yet beneath the noise, their bond continued to grow, not in grand gestures, but in quiet consistency, not in defiance, but in more than just a fairy tale. Their story did not unfold in the way fairy tales often do. There was no grand confession under the stars, no dramatic gestures captured by cameras, no sudden elevation from rags to riches. What grew between them was slower, deeper, and far more real. It was not rooted in fantasy, it was built on recognition, respect, and a shared understanding of silence, struggle, and strength. And while the world waited for a headline that never came, something far more meaningful took shape. He began to change, not in the loud ways people expected, but in the quiet ones that truly matter. Boardroom decisions began to reflect empathy. Policies within his company shifted toward fairness, higher wages for staff, better health care, paid leave for workers who had never known a day off. He cited no inspiration publicly,